The first time I met my mom, she teased me like I was a dog. She laughed carelessly. If you give me the dragonfly, I'll take you to my house to play. I knew it. I'd been reborn. But I just quietly put away the bamboo dragonfly toy, stood up, listened to her crumbling sobs, and looked up with a polite, well-behaved smile. Sorry, Auntie, I don't like going to other people's houses to play. My mom froze. In her expectation, I should have carefully handed over the bamboo dragonfly toy and waited eagerly for her to take me home. But unfortunately, I had been reborn. If it were my past life, the first time I saw my mom, I would have been thrilled and full of anticipation because I had finally waited for my mom to come pick me up. I would no longer be the unwanted wild child my classmates called me. That's why I once tried so hard to please my mom. Back then, she arrived from the city looking glamorous, holding the hand of a little boy dressed in a tiny suit. Seeing me squatting in the dusty yard, he pointed at me and said loudly, "Mom, she looks like a dog." The child's respect made me blush instantly, and I stood there awkwardly. My brother then confidently reached out for the bamboo dragonfly toy in my hand. "I want it. Give it to me." And my mom, she teased me like I was a little puppy. She said with a careless laugh, "As long as you give the bamboo dragonfly toy to my son, I'll take you to my house to play." In my past life, I gave up the bamboo dragonfly toy but didn't receive any praise. My mom tossed 2,000 yuan to the elders back home. She intended to take me away. My grandma was reluctant. Joy is still in school. What about her studies if she leaves now? My mom said lightly, "We'll just enroll her in the same class as Owen next semester. Since Owen's just started first grade and needs someone to look after him, she's the older sister. It's only right for her to take care of her brother." But I was clearly a year older than Owen Wu and should have been in second grade. In my past life, my mom used the excuse that country kids don't do well in school and that she'd already pulled strings to have me repeat first grade, making me study an extra year of first grade compared to my peers. But my grades only dropped instead of improving. The reason was simple. Owen Wu was spoiled rotten at home, and I had to take care of all his daily needs: food, clothing, and shelter. Whenever he caused trouble, I had to apologize to the teacher and stand in punishment alongside him. After returning home, I'd be met with my mom's icy glare. "How can you be so cruel? Standing in punishment for your brother is one thing, but why drag him down with you?" She said bluntly. "From the moment I first saw you, I knew you were selfish and petty. Not all like my daughter. Clearly, being raised in the countryside didn't do you any good." She knew full well how shattering such words would sound to a naive child. But she didn't care, or rather, that was exactly the effect she wanted, because under this daily accumulation of psychological manipulation, all to earn my mom's approval, I ended up spending my whole life trailing after my brother, cleaning up his messes. In the end, when he got hooked on gambling and owed money, it was my name and address they came after to settle the debt. I was pushed, shoved, and beaten by debt collectors. And in my desperate escape, I accidentally fell into the lake and lost my last breath. Yet, I still didn't receive a single tear from my mom. When she saw my lifeless body, she just frowned in disgust and said, "Dad is dead. Why couldn't you pay off Owen's gambling debts before dying?" Truly, having a daughter is useless, just a waste of money, and so selfish to the end. I finally woke up. Perhaps my mother had never, not even a little bit, loved me. When I opened my eyes again, I saw my brother once more shamelessly demanding the bamboo dragonfly toy. My mom still teased me like I was a little dog. She said with a careless laugh, "Give the bamboo dragonfly toy to my son, and I'll take you to my house to play." Quietly, I put the bamboo dragonfly toy away and stood up, listening to her son's broken, crying wails. Then I lifted my head and gave that stunned face a polite, well-behaved smile. "Sorry, Auntie, I don't like going to other people's houses to play." Owen Wu, who had never been treated like a dog before, broke down and cried, wailing uncontrollably. My mom's initial shock gradually twisted into a vicious expression. "Joy Wu, what are you doing? Hurry up and give the toy to your brother. You're the older sister. Don't you know you should give in to your brother? And here, I thought I'd wronged you all these years. planning to bring you to the city for a better life. Turns out you're just an ungrateful wretch." Her words made it sound as if I'd committed some unforgivable sin. If this were before my rebirth, I would have felt like the sky was falling and immediately handed the toy to Owen Wu. Then I would have begged for her forgiveness. She would have taken the chance to back down, reluctantly saying, "Fine then. Don't say I favor boys over girls. I did let you breathe fresh country air for a few years before bringing you to the city. But since I've been reborn," I just smiled even more innocently. "Auntie, who are you? Did your kid die or something? Going around claiming other people's children? You might be unwanted, but I'm wanted. My grandpa and grandma are waiting for me to come home for dinner, so I won't bother with you." With that, I turned and walked back toward the house. My mom, who doted on my brother to the bone, couldn't bear to hear someone curse her son like that. She shrieked, "Joy Wu!" The commotion finally caught my grandparents' attention. Stepping outside, they realized their long-lost daughter had returned from the city. She was flushed with rage. The child beside her was wailing loudly, and as they watched me, the troublemaker, walk over and throw myself into the elder's arms. "Grandma, when are we eating? I'm hungry." The questions they meant to ask stuck in their throats, turning into tenderness. "Soon, your grandpa even steamed your favorite Chinese sausage for you. In this world, some are always favored. Owen Wu had the favor of my mom and dad, but my grandparents favored me." Thinking of the two elders, my nose tingled with emotion. In my past life, after being taken back to the city, I became Owen's personal nanny and the family servant. I was never allowed to return to my hometown to see my grandparents again. My mom only scolded, "What's so interesting about two old folks? I think you're just trying to slack off and avoid taking care of your brother. Why do I feed and clothe you? Selfish brat." And because of their old age, the two elders couldn't bear the journey, so they never got to see me in the city either. The next time we met was at a funeral my mom took me to during my middle school years. A gas leak. Neither of the elders noticed. By the time they were found, the smell was already foul. I heard from villagers that Grandpa and Grandma had developed dementia. They often muttered to themselves about lighting the stove to steam Chinese sausage because their granddaughter was coming home. On the day their bodies were discovered, a full bowl of Chinese sausage still sat on the table. The two elders lay collapsed before it, but they never did wait for their granddaughter to arrive. That day, I cried and screamed in front of everyone, only to be slapped across the face by my dad until my nose bled. "It's just a dead person, isn't it? What's all the yelling for? Disgraceful thing." In the crowd, my brother was happily playing games. In the darkness, my parents quietly turned on the light, counting the gift money bill by bill. Before the fire, the burning paper money illuminated my swollen cheek. But there were no longer the little old man and little old woman to lovingly pat my head and call me Joy. That was the first time I wanted to escape. So when I wasn't allowed to go to college, I ran away. I tightened thousands upon thousands of screws in the assembly line factory. I killed batch after batch of cockroaches in the rental room. I just wanted to save up money to move the little old man and little old woman to a clean, bright grave, not some pit in the field ridge. But I still failed. Just before suffocating after falling into the lake while being chased by debt collectors. Only then did I understand that after hiding for so long, I had actually been discovered from the very beginning. But fortunately, I was reborn. Inside the house, I held a bowl and devoured the Chinese sausage Grandpa had steamed. In my ears, my mom's furious scolding echoed. "Mom, Dad, how on earth did you raise her? Look around. Whose daughter isn't deferential to her brother and filial to her parents? And her, a heartless, ungrateful wretch." My grandpa naturally wouldn't allow anyone to criticize me, but he also didn't want to offend his daughter. So he explained to me, "Joy has always been an obedient and sensible child. She must not recognize you yet. That's why she's acting this way today." My grandpa turned and pointed at my mom as he spoke to me. "Joy, this is your mother, the one you've been asking for since you were little. Don't you recognize her?" Of course I didn't recognize her. After giving birth to me and realizing I was a girl, my Mom unhesitatingly sent me off to my grandparents' home in the countryside. Gus and I are so busy. How could we possibly have time to take care of her? For 8 years after that, she never showed her face. Yet, with her other child, Owen Wu, she kept him by her side, even worrying about him, having no one to care for him when he started school. Only then did she remember the daughter in the countryside she had nearly forgotten. They even made me repeat a grade just to put me in the same class as their son, all for the sake of convenience in looking after him. So, why should I acknowledge her? The room fell dead silent. Everyone staring at me, waiting for my reaction. My mom smugly crossed her arms, expecting me to snap out of it and cling to her in tears. But 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes passed. The expression on my mom's face gradually stiffened, and the only sound at the dinner table was me chewing my rice. She finally lost her composure and snapped at my grandparents. Is this what you call obedient and sensible? No wonder country folks raise such ill-mannered brats. She's always been rebellious, looking down on rural life since her youth. She felt ashamed that Grandpa and Grandma were farmers. So, during her teens, she ran around with troublemakers and delinquents. No matter how much my grandparents tried to reason with her, she wouldn't listen. In the end, they used their hard-earned savings to enroll her in a vocational school, only to discover she'd already stolen the money and run off with that hoodlum. The next time she appeared, she was already holding me, just born and not yet a month old, and tossing me to them, demanding they take care of me. The two elderly folks worried that weaning a child so early would make it hard to keep her alive. She curled her lip impatiently. Just don't let her die. What's all the fuss about? Isn't she your granddaughter too? After saying that, she strode off with my dad. Now, she was just as impatient and didn't plan to wait for me to apologize or beg for forgiveness, simply waving her hand to cut me off. Forget it. I can't be bothered to listen. This filthy backwater place. I don't want Xiao Peng staying here any longer. I came today to take her back. Xiao Peng is starting first grade this year, and I'm afraid he'll get bullied in class. She's his older sister. It's perfect for her to be in the same class and look after him. But shouldn't Joy be going into second grade? My grandma corrected. My mom grew even more impatient. So, what if she repeats a grade? What can this countryside possibly teach her? Holding her back is for her own good. It'll save me the embarrassment of her poor grades when we go back. Besides, I've already pulled the strings to make it happen. As the words fell, I finally scooped the last grain of rice from my bowl into my mouth. I set the bowl down heavily on the table, then lifted my head under everyone's gaze and spoke. I'm not going back. What did you say? My mom couldn't believe it, doubting she'd heard correctly. In her eyes, a country child like me should be grateful just to go to the city. How could I possibly refuse? But I just looked at her and repeated, Vort bevort. I said, I'm not going back. Though just a child, my gaze was chillingly cold. My mom felt inexplicably guilty for a moment, but the next second, anger flared. Joy Wu, is that any way to speak to your mother? You ungrateful brat. I offer you respect, and you throw it back in my face. Yuahua. How can you talk to your own daughter like that? My grandpa couldn't stand it any longer, but my mom only raised her voice louder. What's wrong with what I said? I gave birth to her. She should obey me. Disagree? What right does she have to disagree? Even if I drag her away today, it's legal and justified. The two elders were arguing with her in a huddle. The room was filled with noisy clamor. I just hopped off the chair and walked over to where Owen was playing with a toy truck and eating chips. My mom wouldn't let him eat the food here. She thought it was unclean and feared there might be bugs. When he saw me, he immediately threw the toy truck at my face without hesitation. Serves you right for not letting me play. In my past life, I'd often been bruised by things suddenly thrown at me. He would always gleefully make faces at me, poor and dirty. My mom says, you're not my sister. You're just a waste of money. But this time, with a casual swipe, I knocked the toy truck to the ground, smashing it to pieces. Owen Wu froze, not yet grasping what had happened. Then I slapped him hard across the face. Didn't your mother teach you what manners are? I struck his left cheek again. Since she didn't, I'll teach you myself. He opened his mouth to cry. I rolled up my sleeves and slapped that punchable face repeatedly with loud thwacks. The pent-up anger from my past life was finally released in this one. This little brat was caught off guard and beaten into a swollen mess by me. Didn't my mom say it's only right for an older sister to look after her younger brother? Then it must also be right for an older sister to teach her younger brother a lesson. He bullied me. That's one slap. He caused my death. That's 2 slaps. And in my past life, he mocked my grandpa and grandma right in front of me. That calls for a full-on beating. Someone rotten to the core deserves to be beaten black and blue without pity. As for me, satisfying. I felt relief, both physically and mentally. It was then that he finally snapped out of it and burst into loud sobs. You hit me. I'll tell my mom to beat you to death. The noise caught the adult's attention. In the corner, Owen Wu sat, slumped on the ground, his face swollen like a pig's head, while I held him by the collar and dragged him over to dump him at my mom's feet. Still smiling, she enunciated each word deliberately. I said, I'm not going back. Are you deaf? The scene fell silent for a moment. Then, my mom's scream pierced through the roof. She rushed forward to push me away, but I dodged. Instead, my grandma, without even glancing at her or Owen Wu, swiftly pulled me into her embrace. As for my mom, she nearly stumbled and fell flat on her face. She could only clutch her precious son. Heartbroken, you little monster, what are you trying to do? If anything happens to Owen, you'll pay for it. She was lying. She wanted me to pay right then and there. She stood up, ready to hit me, but found she couldn't land a blow. Grandpa and Grandma stood firmly in front of me, showing no intention of moving aside. They had initially thought my mom came to take me back for a better life, so they had been cautious with their words earlier, afraid of saying something wrong that would put me in a tough spot. But now, seeing my defiant attitude, their faces turned cold. Yuahua, Joy is your child too. Aren't you afraid she'll resent you for being so biased? What right does a waste of money like her have to resent anything? And Mom and Dad, I'm your real daughter. My mom stamped her foot. In her eyes, Grandpa and Grandma had only her as a daughter. So no matter what she did, they had to take her side. That's why she'd been so reckless all these years. Stealing money when young, eloping when grown. If things went wrong, she could always come back crying and be forgiven. But this time, she realized she was wrong. During her long absence, someone had taken her place. For the first time, she tasted what it felt like not to be the favorite. I don't know how complex her emotions were, but when she looked up, through the gap, she saw me standing behind Grandpa and Grandma, smiling triumphantly. It's you. She pointed at me venomously, not like a mother looking at her daughter, but like facing an enemy. It's all because of you, you burden. Since Grandpa and Grandma weren't siding with her anymore, she simply dropped all pretense. Today, I'm taking her away no matter what. I gave birth to her. Let's see who dares stop me. If anyone tries to block me, I'll call the police. This was her ultimate trump card. She is my biological mother. So she believed she had every right to take me away, and no one could interfere. You 2 old fools adore this little burden so much you disown your own daughter? Fine, I'll take her away, right now. You'll never lay eyes on her again in this lifetime. The middle-aged woman, reinvigorated after repeated setbacks, held her son and spat venomous words. She completely ignored Grandpa and Grandma's utterly heartbroken expressions. They thought it was just angry rhetoric, but they didn't realize she meant every word. After all, in my past life, she never let me see Grandpa and Grandma alive again. But could she really deliver on her threats? Fine. I stepped forward and spoke calmly. I agree to go back with you. She froze, surprised it was so easy, but quickly recovered with a smug look. Should have been like this from the start. Had a threatening calling the cops on those 2 old fools to make you see sense. Now, get over here and apologize to your brother by letting him hit you back. But I didn't move. I just smiled and continued. I was actually disappointed he only got to hit me once. Now that you're taking me back, I can beat him every day. I'll hit him every time he cries, every time you provoke me, whether he starts it or not. even if I just don't like his face. If you're not afraid, I'll beat your precious son to death. I'd be happy to go back with you." My mom's smile stiffened, then turned furious. "You dare, Gus, and I will beat you to death. Then you'd better make sure you finish the job." I shot back without hesitation. "If you don't kill me, you'd better pray you keep your son by your side every second. Otherwise, I'll sneakily smash his door at night, slip poison into his meals. And going to school? That's even more convenient. Didn't you want me in the same class as him anyway? Don't worry, no one else can bully him, because I grinned under my mom's horrified gaze. "We'll beat him to death first." "Ah!" my mom screamed, out of terror and helpless rage. "Ungrateful wretch. Selfish brat. I'll beat you to death. I'll beat you to death." She grabbed a fire poker from somewhere and charged at me, cursing wildly. But Grandpa and Grandma held her back, leaving her just circling around me. I stayed silent, quietly stuck out my foot. Thud! The world fell silent. My mom collapsed on the spot, face planted right into the ground. Standing by her head, I frowned, shook my head, and sighed. "You can certainly think I'm bluffing, but I guarantee I'll deliver on my words. So let's go. Mom, we're going home." I reached out to her, looking just like any child clinging to their mother. But my mom's body visibly stiffened. Helpless, I could only turn to the other side and look at Owen Wu, who had watched his own mother fall flat on her face, but stayed curled up without uttering a word. I raised an eyebrow. "Little brother?" His two puffy eyes trembled, and he sniffled. Then he burst into loud, wailing sobs. But what came out wasn't a demand for his mom to beat me to death. Instead, it was, "I don't want it. I don't want her to go to school with me. I want to go home. I want to go home." The little darling was crying his eyes out. My mom could no longer pretend nothing was happening. She shook off Grandma's hand, which was reaching out to help her up. She sprang to her feet, holding her child as if she'd seen a ghost. She bolted outside. Halfway there, she seemed to remember something and turned back to look at me, my expression unchanged. In that instant, her gaze was filled with terror, as if she were looking at a monster, a mix of venom and fear. Her trembling finger slowly rose to point at me, her lips quivering along. "This is a monster. This is a menace. You two old fools protecting him will pay for it sooner or later." Only then did she flee in panic. But she didn't know. What would make her regret and tremble even more was yet to come. It was only the beginning. I knew she wouldn't return anytime soon, because she understood my words were no joke. If she dared force me back to be held back as Owen Wu's nanny, I'd dare beat their son to a pulp where they couldn't see. What if they still dare hit me? Then I'd dare give Owen Wu a super size payback. It all boiled down to who was willing to go all out. I've died once already. What's there to fear about dying again? But while I wasn't afraid, my mom was. She would fret for ages over even the slightest scratch on her precious son. If her darling boy were beaten every single day, it would be worse than killing her. So she didn't dare to hold me back a grade again, even less dared to send me back. The unwelcome guests left, and the old house fell quiet once more. I was afraid to turn around. Since my rebirth, I haven't feared my mom's disappointment or my dad's fists. The only thing I fear is the strange look in my grandparents' eyes, afraid they'd truly think their beloved granddaughter had turned bad and unruly. But even more, I fear the day they might lie cold on the ground, never to wake again. So even if it disappointed my grandparents, I would do it anyway. I braced myself for their strange gaze, but a pair of aged hands trembled as they touched my face. The old man just spoke with aching heart. "Don't cry, don't cry. Our Joy is the best. Your mom just isn't thinking straight. Don't cry. Joy, don't cry." Grandpa only glanced in the direction my mom had left. In the past, they would have gone after their daughter. But now, Grandpa withdrew his gaze, patted my head, and said firmly, "Let's continue our meal. I'll steam another bowl of Chinese sausage for Joy. The poor child has been wronged and is crying." Only then did I realize tears had already streamed down my face. I ate a full meal and had a good night's sleep. My mom indeed never came back. Along with her absence, the monthly 300 yuan allowance also stopped coming. It was Grandpa and Grandma who argued with her over the phone together. My mom, who had always enjoyed her parents' favor, was severely scolded by them for the first time because of someone else. She screamed over the phone, "I'm playing favorites? She's just a waste of money. I did well not to strangle and abandon her. What more do you want? I'm your daughter. How dare you favor someone else over me?" Grandpa was so angry, he could barely contain himself. We raised Joy with our own hands. Who else would we favor if not her? My mom instantly lost her footing in the argument, but just then, a man's scornful voice came through the phone. "As if you weren't paid for it. Too old good for nothings." That was my dad, Gus Wu. He always looked down on Grandpa and Grandma because they had no sons, only my mom, a daughter. So he always assumed that as their son-in-law, he'd be stuck taking care of them in their old age. That's why he never missed a chance to throw cold remarks their way. Sure enough, hearing those words, my mom immediately puffed up with self-righteousness. "I paid you. What are you pretending to be saints for? Without that money, you have probably left her in the mountains for the wolves." She sneered. "Back then, you only raised me because you couldn't have more kids and had to rely on me for support in your old age. What right do you have to judge me now?" Those words undoubtedly cut Grandpa to the core. The old man was stubborn. By the time I fully grasped what had happened, he had already given the two on the other end of the line a thorough tongue lashing. Before they could even retort, he fiercely blocked their number. My dad and my mom, the couple, felt deeply humiliated. They simply stopped caring about me altogether, and along with that, the monthly allowance of $300 vanished. They declared, "Without money, let's see how those two old fools beg," and cried to send her back. But Grandpa just sneered coldly. He pulled out a money bag from under the bed, wrapped layer upon layer. It was the savings the elderly couple had set aside for their own funeral arrangements. My dad and my mom had overthought it. Grandpa and Grandma had never expected them to provide for their old age or handle their affairs. They had long made all the arrangements for themselves. But as I looked at the tightly bundled banknotes, my heart ached, and I asked softly, "If this is used for my tuition, what will you do later?" The old man chuckled lightly, "Carefree, just a few pounds of bones and flesh. Does it really need a wooden box? When the time comes, just dig 2 pits and bury me anywhere." He paused at this point, then added, "Never mind. 1 pit is enough." I looked up instinctively. He patted my head and laughed cheerfully. 2 would be too tiring. How exhausted would Joy be then? He was old, his face covered in wrinkles. They say, in his youth, he was the strongest farmer in the whole village. He even killed wild dogs and snakes in the mountains. The once defiant young man had been worn down by time. All that remained was wrinkled skin and a frail body. Yet he would still pat my head and tell me, "Even without that ungrateful wretch's money, this old man can still raise Joy just fine." Grandma peeked out from the kitchen, scolding with a laugh. "Stop boasting. Could you manage without me? Come eat." The old woman's eyes and brows flowed with a gentle serenity, still faintly revealing the radiant beauty of her youth. She called out, "Joy, it's time to eat." He also called out, "Joy, come on, let's eat." A stinging bitterness blurred my vision. I wiped away the falling tears. My gaze grew resolutely firm. Never again. I will never let them fall in some forgotten corner again. No one can stop me. I stepped forward, crushing the dry twigs beneath my feet, with unwavering resolve. Even if it's my own flesh and blood. In the new semester, I began studying frantically, desperately memorizing every word in the textbooks. My grades had never been poor to begin with. In my past life, even while being Owen Wu's caretaker, I still managed to get into a top-tier university. Not to mention, I still carried the memories from before. Thus, from elementary to middle school, I always ranked first. After school, I would rush back to help Grandpa and Grandma with farming. Other times, I went to the mountains, where a moss-like medicinal herb grew. Once matured and dried, people would come with tricycles to buy it bag by bag. The lightweight moss filled a large bag, but only fetched 10 yuan per pound. Bit by bit, these 10 yuan notes piled up to cover my tuition fees. Occasionally, I made time to tutor the children of uncles and aunties in the village. I never charged a fee. They were naturally happy to see it. They told everyone I was a filial and kind-hearted child. The old couple of the Wong family had raised a wonderful granddaughter. I just smiled without saying a word. When high school came, I got into the county's key school. Catching up with the knowledge gap demanded even more diligence from me. I practiced English until my lips were chapped, just to lose my local accent. But even a key school in the county was still in a remote area. The dazzling array of lab equipment and physics and chemistry books remained something I could only glance at occasionally. On the rare occasion I did an experiment, I would immediately pack it up and lock it in the cabinet. Most of the time, I could only imagine the process while reading the textbook. At that moment, I knew it was time for me to leave. Or perhaps my mother should have come looking for me by then. It should have been an ordinary summer vacation. I returned to the village in a rickety minibus. Right away, I saw the most gossip. Loving Aunt Lou waving at me. "Joy, hurry home and see. Your mom's here." Her son was weak in math, so I helped him build his foundation. It was she who spread the word about my reputation for being filial and kind. Hearing this, even though I had expected it, my heart still tightened uneasily. Not to mention what she added next. "And your dad is with her." Stories about my mom had long since spread throughout this small village. Plus, Grandpa had openly declared he had severed ties with her long ago. The villagers were sharp. Upon reflection, they could easily piece things together. So Aunt Lou couldn't help but say a few more sympathetic words to me. "Your dad is a big, strong man. When you go back, talk to him calmly. Don't do anything rash. And while you're at it, advise your grandpa not to offend his son. In law." What she really meant was, "Don't provoke my dad into getting physical. An old man wouldn't stand a chance." I appreciated her kindness and said to her, "Aunt Lou, I'd like to ask you for a favor." A small car was parked outside the courtyard. Inside, before my parents could even step through the gate, Grandpa and Grandma splashed 2 basins of water at them, keeping their distance on the ground. My mom was furious. "You 2 old fools. Do you even know the law? I'm here to pick up my daughter. I'm her birth mother, her real mother. It's perfectly reasonable and legal for me to take my daughter home. What you're doing is illegal confinement. Watch out, or I'll sue you." Grandpa sneered. "This old man is 78. Go ahead, call the police. See who dares to get involved. If anyone tries to help you snatch the child, I'll just lie right here on the ground and refuse to get up." That left my mom speechless for a moment. She snapped back, enraged. "You old good for no." Before she could finish her last word, she spotted my grandma and instantly changed her tone. "Mom, look at my dad." She waited for my grandma to speak up for her. After all, my grandma used to dote on her the most. But my grandma just stared at her coldly. "What mom are you talking about? Didn't you tell everyone your parents died long ago?" This was something my mom said in her youth. Back when she was most vain, she was always afraid people would find out her parents were farmers. So she simply told anyone who asked that she was an orphan. My mom was left speechless, knowing she was in the wrong. Instead, the burly man behind her spat impatiently. "Enough nonsense. Where have you hidden my daughter?" With that, he tried to charge straight through the door. My grandpa stood his ground, not flinching. If he were actually hit, the old man would surely end up in the hospital. But my dad showed no fear. "So what if he gets hit? If they dare call the police, you'll just sign a waiver for me, won't you?" he commanded my mom. But before he could reach Grandpa, I rushed in and shouted, "Grandpa." My dad turned around. I had tried countless times to convince myself I wasn't their biological child. Yet every time, I nearly succeeded. Seeing this face that bore some resemblance to mine plunged me back into despair. My dad sized me up. "So you're Joy Woo, the one who hit your brother back then?" He expected me to be afraid. After all, he had always been the undisputed head of the household, an authority no one dared challenge. But I just stood there, staring coldly back at him. In my past life, my mom either beat or berated me, and my brother showed me zero respect. He saw all of it, yet he always had the audacity to claim he never owed me a thing. He worked himself to death to provide for me, so I should be grateful. As for the beatings and insults I endured, those were my mom's doing, nothing to do with him, but without his silent consent, or even encouragement. How could my mom and my brother have treated me so ruthlessly? Even if my corpse were laid before him in the end, wouldn't he only lament the lost bride price from the hard-found marriage arrangement? Perhaps my gaze was too icy. His face turned grim, as if he might lunge and slap me the next second. And indeed, he did just that. My grandma rushed forward to stop him. "Don't hit the child." But an elderly woman's reflexes are no match for a grown man's. However, my mom also hurried to intervene. Yet what she said was, "Don't hit your dad." Too late. Before his slap could land, the big stick from Joy's Uncle Lou's daughter, Uncle Zhang's eldest nephew, and Uncle Wang's little nephew came swinging down. No idea. He just charged with his palm raised. Joy asked us to help her grandpa with the farm work. We thought it was a big corn cob. Blind spot. Couldn't see a thing. "Whoa, it's Uncle Tianga. We thought you were a trafficker. Go tell that to the minor protection law." My dad came in sideways and ended up lying flat. I thanked all my friends, who just waved it off. "You tutored us and boosted our rankings by several places. We haven't forgotten." My parents said, "If you ever need anything, just say the word. We'll come help again next time." I smiled faintly without speaking. Sure enough, once someone's laid out flat, they're easier to reason with. My mom was heartbroken, glaring at me with resentment. How could you do this to your dad? He's your father." I looked down at this middle-aged woman who shared my features and simply said, "Mom, Grandpa was your father too." A flicker of guilt flashed in her eyes, but the next moment she spoke defiantly. "That's completely different. I'm a woman. When you marry, you follow your husband. Marry a rooster. Follow the rooster. Marry a dog. Follow the dog. Of course, I have to stand by my husband." My dad also gritted his teeth. "You damn brat. Just you wait." There wasn't a trace of fear in my eyes as I looked at his bruised body and kindly reminded him, "Dad, you'd better speak to me properly." Both of them recalled the earlier scene and instinctively shrank their necks. They chickened out. This is the village, not the city. When one family is in trouble, 8 sides come to help. If they didn't speak properly, we could just repeat the earlier procedure. Clearly, they didn't want that. Besides, they had actual business coming here. And so, I got to witness a live performance of Sichuan face changing. The two who had been glaring at me suddenly softened their expressions, like a loving couple, and said to me, "Joy, we're here to take you home." Their reason was simply that I was in my final year of high school. Owen Wu was in his second year, a critical period, yet his grades were abysmal under their doting upbringing. Coincidentally, it was around this time that my mom heard from a fellow villager working in the city praising me for being both filial and kind, and for always ranking first in exams. She had the foresight to ask my homeroom teacher, and to her shock, discovered her daughter's grades were worlds apart from her son's. Instantly, she began scheming. Owen Wu had a terrible temper, was hard to discipline, and had driven away several tutors. Those tutors were not only expensive, but also gave them attitude. Rather than deal with that, it'd be better to bring me back. I could even do the laundry and cook for the family, killing 3 birds with 1 stone. So today, both having time off, they came to the countryside bright and early with ulterior motives. Grandpa was the first to object. "If you want to take Joy away to cater to your good, for nothing son, you'll have to get through this old man first." Grandma, ever the civilized one, could only redden with anger and say, "This is outrageous." But my mom replied as if it were only natural. "What kind of talk is that? Mom and Dad, Joy's a senior in high school. This backwater place with its poor conditions will only hold her back. I took her to the city for the sake of her education too. You all love Joy so much. Surely, you don't want her to fail getting into a good university, right?" But my grandpa wouldn't listen to his smooth talk. As long as I wasn't willing, even 100 good reasons for my benefit wouldn't make him agree. Several times, my dad couldn't resist the urge to curse at the old man, but one look at me, and he'd remember the pain he'd suffered. So he'd quiet down. In the end, my mom finally realized that the last bit of favor she had with her parents had long been worn away by her own actions. She had no choice but to lower her head to me, like any doting mother would. "Joy, I know you hate Mom and Dad, but when you grow up, you'll understand. We had our reasons too." My dad chimed in. Exactly. See, as soon as things got better, we came to pick you up. Xiao Peng in the city goes to a private school and gets 300 yuan a week in pocket money. You'll get the same if you come. It's much better than here. Won't you come home with Mom? I just asked. Then, why didn't you keep Owen Wu back then? My parents. After enjoying their constipated expressions, I finally spoke. But, sure, what did you say? My parents were incredulous. They never expected me to agree so easily. I smiled, showing 8 teeth, and looked at them. I said, "Sure, Mom and Dad, I've been wanting to go home so badly. Your nightmare is about to begin." Seeing me agree so readily, they almost immediately packed up to leave, afraid I'd change my mind even a second later. Grandpa and Grandma were worried I might get bullied back home. I said goodbye to them, unable to tell the elderly that it's my parents who should be worried. I just reminded them to eat well and promised I'd visit the moment school breaks came. I'd already visited all the village elders when I asked Aunt Lou to gather people earlier. They acknowledged the favors owed over these years. They promised me that if anything happened to Grandpa and Grandma, they would step in to help. As for my parents, I spoke up the moment they opened the door. "Did you forget something?" They looked confused. "What?" I blinked innocently. "Child support." Of course. Back when they cut off my child support, it was Grandpa and Grandma who farmed to raise me. All these years, Grandpa and Grandma never brought it up, so they naturally forgot. Hearing me say this, they were stunned, but they knew better than to test me. If they didn't pay, I definitely wouldn't go back with them. Reluctantly, they had to pay up. Just as they were about to hand it over, I spoke again. "It's 300 a week." My dad grew wary. "What, 300? I looked at my mom with a sweet smile. "Mom just said Owen Wu gets 300 a week for living expenses. I should get the same. So the child support for Grandpa and Grandma should also be calculated at 300 a week, not 300 a month." My dad lost it. "That much? I don't have that kind of cash on me right now." "No? Then empty every last cent you've got." Thus, when my parents left, their faces were utterly grim. All they had left was some loose change for the fare, truly cleaned out. As soon as the car started, my dad gritted his teeth. "You just wait, you little brat." I scoffed, leisurely. I closed my eyes. This is only the beginning. Like I said, it's all just getting started. Hope you won't be crying when the time comes. Sure enough, once we left the village, the moment we got home, they started throwing their weight around, pointing at the bed crammed into the balcony. They said coldly, "You'll sleep here from now on." They expected me to panic and tread carefully, but I just glanced at the balcony where I'd lived for years in my past life, then pointed to a room. "Aren't there rooms in the house?" "The biggest room is for Owen, and the other one is for his guitar storage. Where would we put you?" My mom said impatiently. I just said, "Oh." I walked past them and into the kitchen. "What are you going to do?" My mom suddenly had a bad feeling. Sure enough, the next moment, she saw me charging toward the bedroom door with a kitchen knife. Not the one for the guitar, but Owen Wu's room. Before either of them could react, I used all my strength to hack at the door. Again and again, bang, bang, bang. The noise was shockingly loud. All those years helping Grandpa chop firewood weren't wasted. "You lunatic, what are you doing?" My parents screamed. Owen Wu, who had been sound asleep, was jolted awake and opened the door with an annoyed look. "Who is it?" Then he saw a kitchen knife just centimeters from his face. He froze instantly, then a stream of liquid hit the floor, accompanied by an indescribable odor. He'd wet himself in fear. "Owen." My parents were worried sick, yet they dared not step forward, afraid of what I might do. I tilted my head and asked, "Mom, Dad, do I have a room to stay in now?" They were completely speechless. It was Owen Wu who finally remembered. Trembling, he stared at me in terror. "It was you. Seems those slaps I gave him back then left quite an impression. He's remembered them all this time." Then again, someone like Owen Wu, pampered by my parents since childhood, has never known a real beating. The only one that left a lasting mark naturally came from me, his sister. That one lesson stayed with him for over a decade. Even the next day, when he saw me emerge from the room where he kept his guitar and found all his precious guitars moved out to the balcony, he gritted his teeth. It really is you, Joy Woo. My mom must have told him too. From now on, I'll be tutoring him. My mom originally thought he'd throw a tantrum and smash things. After all, I beat him up before. He's held a grudge all these years. Not to mention Owen Woo is even more hot, tempered, and aggressive now. But surprisingly, he agreed right away. No smashing, no tantrums, almost eerily well behaved. This thrilled my mom beyond measure, instantly convinced that bringing me here was absolutely the right move, even though I'm a wild child. As long as it straightens her son out and gets him into a good college, she'll put up with anything. Owen Woo didn't say a word about it. It wasn't until we were heading to school that he turned back, drew a finger across his throat, smirked coldly at me, and silently mouthed 4 words. You're done for. He walked away too fast, too hurried. He didn't notice that behind him, I also silently mouthed 4 words. You're dead meat. The homeroom teacher at the new school didn't like me and greeted me coldly. You must be Joy Woo. Follow me. High school courses were especially rigorous, and if this weren't a private school, they wouldn't have accepted me. Naturally, I was placed in the worst class. Before entering the classroom, she warned me, don't say I didn't warn you. No matter what backwater town you're from, once you're here, you better behave and stay in line. Don't cause any trouble. With that, she pushed the classroom door open. Pointing to the seat in the far back corner, she said to me, you'll sit there. The class fell silent for a moment. Dozens of eyes fixed on me, but I calmly walked to the desk. As I picked up the new textbook that had been violently tossed onto the desktop, a cloud of chalk dust blew into my face, instantly turning it into a messy canvas. The quiet classroom erupted into roaring laughter. So, this is the country bumpkin Owen mentioned. Not much to look at. She stinks. How does Owen even have a sister like this? In his rebellious phase of his past life, Owen Woo prided himself on being precocious, never mingling with peers, solely focused on fraternizing with upperclassmen. Seems this lifetime is no different. I paused, tilted my head, and glanced toward the homeroom teacher at the podium. She merely lowered her head, flipping through a book as if nothing had happened, and snapped sharply, what's all this noise? Everyone quiet down and focus on the lesson. So she's brushing it off lightly, not planning to dig deeper. I understood. I grabbed the book in my hand and hurled it at the most arrogant one, laughing the loudest. Snapping back just as sharply, the teacher said, quiet down. Are you deaf? Thud. The latter was hit square in the face. The atmosphere instantly turned eerie. The previously mocking or sneering smiles froze on their faces, replaced by shock and disbelief. I knew why they were so stunned. That guy was Vic Su, the school bully, who'd long decided to enroll in some vocational college. After school, there was always a group of shady characters waiting for him at the campus gate. I heard his older brother was one of those delinquents, so no one dared to provoke him. Like right now, he snapped back to reality, eyes blazing as if they could spit fire, raising his fist. You motherf. I stood my ground, staring coldly at him, neither dodging nor flinching. Of course, he didn't lay a hand on me, because just before things escalated, the homeroom teacher, who'd been playing blind, finally spoke up. Enough. All of you, stop right now. A bunch of societal parasites, trying to throw your weight around in school. This is a place for learning, not for you to flaunt your so-called personalities. As she said this, she was clearly looking at me, impatient. Everyone, sit down now. Vic Su was reluctant. I remained composed. I even knew that later. They'd scribble nasty words on my desk, trick me into the bathroom, and drench me till I was soaked. They'd even spread rumors that I was promiscuous outside. So from then on, everyone would avoid me like the plague, afraid of catching some disease. Owen Woo looked smug. You bitch. How dare you hit me? You're done for. Unfortunately, he didn't see what he wanted to see. What approached him wasn't a disheveled, pitiful girl in tears. but an elder sister asserting dominance with a raised fist. She threw a punch right at him. "Didn't your mother teach you what manners are?" I struck his left cheek again. "Since she didn't, I'll teach you myself." History repeated itself. Before he even realized what was happening, I'd beaten him to a pulp in front of everyone. When he finally reacted and tried to fight back, a backpack smacked him square in the face. The childhood trauma resurfaced. With the words, "You're dead, even now." Owen Wu instinctively flinched. He struggled and yelled, "What are you doing here? Where's Vic Su? Didn't he promise to get revenge for me?" No sooner had he spoken than the sound of police sirens grew closer. I said to his bewildered gaze, "Who called the police? Where's the pervert sneaking into the women's restroom?" I raised my hand. "It was me, officer," then pointed at Vic Su, who was being held by a group of girls and already bruised and battered. "He's the pervert. In my past life." Vic Su ran, wild, relying on his arrogance, and I endured it silently due to being suppressed since childhood. But this time, when he quietly lifted a bucket and crept into the restroom, I circled behind him, kicked him flat on his face, screamed in terror, "There's a pervert. Someone, help!" Back, when I was alone, everyone stood by and did nothing. Now that it threatens everyone's interests, it naturally became a collective rush to judgment, so much so that the school couldn't even smooth things over anymore, and could only watch helplessly as a crowd of startled girls seized the culprit, letting the police take Vic Su away. Before leaving, he screamed hysterically, "Joy Wu, you bitch. I won't let you get away with this. I won't let you get away with this." Beside me, Owen Wu turned pale with fear, glared at me viciously. "You're insane. A crazy woman." I shrugged indifferently. Who's afraid of whom? Turns out, he was afraid of me. So even if he resented me, he didn't dare raise his voice at me. As rebellion and revenge, he'd vanish without a trace during the 2-hour after school tutoring sessions. Ask where he was, and the answer was always the gaming zone in some internet cafe. I didn't mind, much like how the homeroom teacher, upon hearing Vic Su was arrested, didn't ask what he'd done wrong but instead demanded, "Who called the police?" She taught the underperforming class. Any commotion would earn her criticism, so she only grew more resentful of me, the instigator. The most obvious sign was how I became invisible in class. Neither teachers nor classmates seemed to acknowledge my existence. Group assignments were mine alone, and I was never called on to answer questions. But I paid no mind, chasing down explanations in the office for anything I didn't understand. Over time, some teachers grew uneasy and privately advised me, "Joy Wu, maybe you should just apologize to Ms. Lin." I stayed silent, then went straight to the homeroom teacher. She justified herself without hesitation. "So what if it was me, a student like you, who refuses discipline? I'm just thinking about the class's progress. If you're not satisfied, you can transfer classes or schools. Private schools have always offered a lot of freedom, but transferring during the critical college entrance exam period, the impact is obvious." I stared coldly at her smug face, then turned and left. Everything seemed as if nothing had happened. Owen Wu dashed off after school, and I remained the invisible one in class. Aside from staying 2 hours after school every day, there were no other incidents, until the results of the first monthly exam came out. That day, before heading to the arcade, Owen Wu gave me a malicious grin. "Don't even think about running home tonight." I didn't understand what he meant. It wasn't until I got home and saw my mom smash dinner to pieces that I realized. Turns out, he scored last in the entire school. Every paper was blank. The report card was sent directly to our parents' phones. My mom was hysterical. "I brought you back to reform your brother. You wretched girl. You're living it up while he's getting worse. You menace. You jinx." She tried to hit me. I pulled out the kitchen knife I'd brought with me, watching her crumbling expression coldly. "I'll only teach. Whether you learn or not is none of my business. You." She nearly choked on her breath. Get out right now. Get out of my house. Can't hit me. So, you're trying to kick me out instead? But you can't even do that." The blood ties that once disgusted me so much ironically came into play at this moment. "If you kick me out and cut off my child support, I'll sue you and make a scene at school. I'll call the reporters, get it in the papers, on TV. Let everyone know you have a precious son you spoil rotten, while ignoring your own biological daughter. If we go down together. Let's see if you're willing to let your darling son be torn to shreds by public scorn. My mom was truly driven to the brink by me. You burden. You're nothing but a burden. What sin did I commit to give birth to such a bastard? She seemed to age in that instant, but I couldn't muster an ounce of pity. I thought Owen Wu so. Called warning meant my mom would just rage at me for failing the exam, but I still underestimated it, because in the dead of night, screams and the sound of smashing objects erupted together. My eyes snapped open. I pulled the kitchen knife from under my pillow. The drunken man's curses never ceased. He smashed everything in the house to pieces, and my mom seemed to be begging for mercy. I finally understood why Owen wouldn't come home tonight. Because my dad was drunk. He shouted curses. Slut, ungrateful wretch, a waste of money, bitch, cursing both my mom and me. In my past life, he was also an alcoholic who went on rampages. Every drunken episode came with violence and oppression. My mom and I took plenty of beatings, but the next day, after sobering up, he acted as if he remembered nothing. He went to work and ate as usual. The only traces left were probably the bruises on me and my mom. Several times, I told my mom, let's run away. She slapped me with unprecedented ferocity. Who taught you to say that? She always had plenty of excuses. If it weren't for you two being useless, why would your dad drink? Your dad is just under pressure. Hitting a few times is nothing. Can't you be more understanding? Only thinking of yourself. You selfish brat. I couldn't understand one bit, because now my dad is banging on my door. The anger he held back in the village that day erupted. Furious, he roared, "Get the hell out here. I'll show you who's the boss of this house." He wore himself out from pounding and retreated to his bedroom, cursing under his breath. But I was jolted awake by the noise. Someone severely sleep-deprived always wakes up with a foul temper. So the moment he closed the door, I opened mine. Amid my mom's shocked cries, I hacked and kicked at that door. I came out. Now you get out here too. Don't you dare chicken out. I put every ounce of strength into it, with a desperate, all or nothing ferocity. Everyone believed if my dad came out, I was capable of anything. Unfortunately, when he knocked on my door, I emerged. But when I pounded on his, the man who'd just been smashing things and hitting his wife fell silent as a mouse behind his locked door. I wore myself out from smashing, and my anger faded. Before leaving, I spat and sneered. Coward, in this house of horrors, only by being the fiercest could you survive. Even when Owen Wu returned the next day and found me unharmed, my parents' attitude toward me held more fear. They turned into mute little lambs. But they weren't the only ones going crazy. I had just arrived in class, and immediately sensed the strange atmosphere around me. Everyone was staring at me in unison. The door was then pushed open forcefully. Our homeroom teacher, who had been so arrogant before, now had her makeup smeared. Tears of anger streamed down her face. You, how dare you report me? How dare you write that report letter about me? This is deliberate revenge. It's slander. I feigned innocence. The recording I provided was of the teacher's own words. How could that be slander? Clearly, having been called in for a talk and given a penalty had stripped her of all reason. Ignoring the other teacher's protests, she blurted out, "Do whatever you want. Anyway, she pointed at me viciously. I refuse to teach her anymore. Whoever wants her can have her. She's not allowed in my class." As her words fell, the other teachers looked at her, hesitating to speak. It was the Chinese teacher who kindly reminded her, "Ms. Lin, haven't you seen your class's monthly exam results yet?" "What do you mean?" The homeroom teacher froze. Of course she hadn't looked. It was all bottom rankings anyway. Besides, she'd been called in for a talk. She wasn't in the mood to check. The Chinese teacher, or rather, Class 1's homeroom teacher, smiled. Joy Wu loves studying and came in first this time. With the school's recent reclassification, she's been assigned to Class 1, so there's no need for her to be pushed out. I'm here to pack her things and take her to class 1 with me. How is this possible? How? The homeroom teacher couldn't believe it, blurting out the next second. She must have cheated. She absolutely must have cheated. Such reckless words made the other teachers frown in disapproval. MS. Lynn, even if you dislike Joy Woo, you shouldn't say things like that. Our school's exam supervision is famously strict. Even if she wanted to cheat, she couldn't have cheated her way to first place. All her once familiar colleagues were now standing against her. Furious, the homeroom teacher laughed bitterly. How dare you judge me? Weren't you all the ones saying she never studied properly and caused trouble everywhere before? That's what she thought, but she forgot that in school, willfulness doesn't always get you everything. Yet with good enough grades, you're guaranteed all the favoritism. I shouldered my bag and decisively left the class I'd spent a month with, without looking back. After all, who cares about a bunch of losers? Everything went exactly as I imagined. I moved to the advanced class and received preferential resources. My previously stagnant grades leaped to another level. As for home, after my initial outburst, nobody dared provoke me yet, so they simply chose to ignore me, acting as if I didn't exist. My dad still drank and raged, but he smashed everything in the house except my door. My mom still cursed me as a waste of money and ungrateful wretch, but she guiltily shut up the moment I appeared. As for my brother, he remained the same jerk as in my past life, pocketing more allowance than me. He drifted between internet cafes and arcades. His gambling addiction was just beginning to show, but my mom had her own reasoning. Owen just needs to unwind from academic pressure. Unlike you, who studies rigidly, what's the use of good grades for a girl anyway? Occasionally, late at night, when I got up to drink water in the living room, I'd notice the lights still on in her and my dad's bedroom. They'd be murmuring my name, discussing who knows what. Meanwhile, Owen never missed a chance to taunt me. Just wait. My mom says you can gloat for now, but you'll get what's coming to you. Whether I'd get what was coming, I didn't know, but he definitely got a taste of my fists. During the break, I visited Grandpa and Grandma. The tragedies of my past life didn't repeat. Both were healthy and beamed as they looked me over, worried I might have lost even half a pound. Time flew by, and just like that, I walked into the examination hall. Years of diligent study were put to the test in those few short days. The college entrance exams ended. A storm was brewing. It didn't wait for me to do a thing, as if it had been biding its time for revenge. The day the results came out, my dad, my mom, and Owen Wu stood blocking the door in unison. They even locked the windows shut. My dad rarely smiled at me. Joy, we've supported your education all these years. Isn't it time you repaid your parents' kindness? That's right. One should know gratitude and pay it back. What's the difference between ingratitude and being an animal? My mom chimed in. I saw right through it all, pretending not to know. I asked, so, what do you want me to do? Nothing much. It's just that I've got a girlfriend who's pregnant, and her family is pressing for the bride price. Our family doesn't have that kind of money. After reaching adulthood, Owen Wu turned reckless and unruly. My mom said you were born to secure a bride price for me. My mom shot him a scolding look, but went along with a smile as she spoke to me. Don't listen to your brother. It's just that you're not young anymore. What's the use of more studying? Better to marry into a wealthy family. The bride price you get can help support your brother. I replied, is that rich man nearly 50, with a lame leg, living by the stinking ditch, but offering a bride price of $150,000? My parents froze, stunned. How did you know? Only after speaking did they realize they had slipped up. They dropped the pretense, turning vicious. Whether you like it or not, you will marry him. Parental orders and matchmakers' words. Who dares disobey? Don't even think about getting a single cent for tuition. And today, you won't take a single step out this door. They were fully prepared, just like how they treated me in my past life. Owen Wu sneered at me maliciously. Joy Wu, you finally met your match. The difference was, in my past life, I desperately escaped, working day and night on the assembly line, only to be found and end up drowning in the lake with eyes wide open in regret. But in this life, I didn't run. Instead, I listened to the celebratory gongs and drums downstairs and smiled. When will my foolish family ever understand that in my past life, it was only because Owen Wu's grades slipped and he barely made it into a top-tier university that they had a chance to manipulate me? But in this life, I've become City A's valedictorian. The city's celebrated valedictorian being forced to marry some old bachelor, even if they aren't afraid of public scorn. The mayor certainly would be. So, how could they possibly succeed? Sure enough, they could only watch helplessly as I was surrounded and escorted onto the award stage. I received scholarships from both the school and the city. In my acceptance speech, I made sure to mention every bit of guidance my grandpa and grandma had given me. For a time, the internet overflowed with praise for the two elders. As for my parents, no matter how much they scoured the web, not a single mention was made of the valedictorian's parents, let alone any compliments. Their envy was almost palpable. They finally realized I had completely slipped from their control. If they didn't make a move soon, they might never get another chance. So before long, countless reports flooded the internet, claiming the top scorer was unfilial, abused his parents, beat his younger brother, and bullied classmates. Utterly despicable. Everyone thought he was a high IQ academic genius, but it turns out he's just born evil. Giving birth to such a child is nothing but a curse. Accusations came pouring in, yet they were so flimsy. Reporters chasing headlines went to interview my classmates. Bullying? You can't mean Vic Sue, that pervert who got caught sneaking into the girls' restroom? Even persistent reporters tracked all the way to my hometown and ran into Aunt Lou at the village entrance. Aunt Lou said, "Joy, that child is the most filial and kind-hearted in our whole village. Her toxic parents abandoned her with her grandparents. If not for the tuition money Grandpa and Grandma earned farming, where would she be today? This is her well-deserved blessing." Others chimed in. Joy even used to tutor my kid. Went from failing to scoring 70s now. Exactly. Same with my family. So if anyone dares disturb the elderly in our village, don't blame us for being unwelcoming. The villagers stood united. The journalists didn't even get to see my grandpa and grandma. Still, what needed to be known became known. The news broke. Public opinion flipped, turning my parents and Owen Wu into public enemies. Everyone scorned. It wasn't that they didn't try to cause trouble, but when they went to my school, my story was already all over the internet, and everyone just pointed fingers at them. The looks directed at me were full of sympathy. When they went to the village to find Grandpa and Grandma, the villagers drove them out with big sticks. In the end, they could only slink back home. Little did they know, by then Owen, who had already become addicted to gambling, when they returned, he had long since sold the property deed. Keep in mind, when they bought the house, it was registered under Owen Wu's name, all to ensure their precious son had security. But they had no idea that their precious son would eventually sell the house behind their backs. And that wasn't even the worst of it. He lost every last penny of the money he got. Debt collectors came in an endless stream. My brother's pregnant girlfriend, sensing trouble, quickly had an abortion and ran away. After all, the child wasn't even his. And my dad's workplace, afraid of being implicated, promptly handed him a dismissal notice. Left with no choice, the whole family had to work on assembly lines, twisting countless screws by the thousands. They ended up in a cramped rental apartment, swatting one wave of cockroaches after another, shouting, scolding, and crying became a regular soundtrack. As for me, I seized the opportunity during university to start a business with a group of like-minded friends. From the moment I earned my first pot of gold, I brought Grandpa and Grandma to live with me. No one could ever hold me back from chasing the light again, except that on certain mornings, I'd receive a phone call. On the other end was Aunt Lou, much older but still full of energy. She said my dad drank heavily and beat his wife, but ended up having a stroke and dying. By the time others found him, only my mom, who had gone mad, was by his side. As for Owen Wu, he lost a leg while running from debt collectors. He was found half a month later in some foul-smelling ditch, still clutching the loose change he'd snatched from my mom. Just like in my past life, when they saw my corpse, they didn't shed a tear. This time, It was me hearing news of their deaths, and I didn't cry a single tear either. From the kitchen, Grandma called out to me, "Joy, dinner's ready." Grandpa brought out a steaming, fragrant bowl full of Chinese sausage from the steamer. Amid the sound of firecrackers outside the window, I smiled, answered, and walked over. It happened to be New Year's Eve, a time for reunion,